The coaching relationship is considered to be defined as the time from initial contact with the client through various stages of working together toward the client's goals. Processes of coaching and change have similarities. In this lesson, we will focus on three themes. In this way, we are building a coaching model that builds upon itself. Keep this in mind as you move through the rest of the program. The first theme is really more of an observation of all the different stages of the coaching relationship, and it's important to be aware of some of the typical perspectives about the progression of stages that the coach and client are likely to go through during this relationship where an end goal or outcome is desired. Next, the stages of change, or more specifically, the trans-theoretical model, has to be understood by the coach. Now, the trans-theoretical model is a well-researched model that outlines how clients go through with change agendas and the likely progression through all of the different challenges of changing a particular behavior. The last theme is related to the learning process involved with change. Our coaching model is one that considers change as the learning process itself. This is also important for the lifestyle fitness coach to remember. Coaching relationships are considered to be nonlinear, and as part of the process, the development of coaching relationships might require that the coach be more aware of things or be more in tune to things that they do at the outset of working with a brand new client. Clients in a process of change might have different needs during this evolving process of their change efforts or change agenda, and if the coach is not aware of these dynamics, they might respond inappropriately or be surprised by behavior that comes from the client. In general, coach relationships can be divided into three different stages. The first stage is relationship building, challenging the client to find new ways to change, and finally facilitating positive client actions round out the three general processes of coaching. Coaching models still resemble counseling in that they generally move through in stages. The first stage is known as the preliminary stage, and before a coach is to meet with a new client, the coach must arrange for the proper space to meet and have the right materials beforehand. This might involve having questionnaires, intake forms, assessment materials, or any other tools used in the interview process. It's also important to remember that these steps should not be confused with the different stages of change which are talked about in Lesson 5. The next phase involves rapport and relationship building. Within the coaching context, the term relationship has specific meanings, and this is due to it being a time when the coach builds trust and psychological comfort for the client. Whatever conditions the coach creates during the stage should be maintained and developed upon through the remaining stages of the coaching relationship. Early stages of coach and client relationships are also vulnerable to mistakes from the coach. If a coach were to probe beyond the client's comfort level, the client may never return for a second session or may be reluctant to open up to the coach. In this way, the coach needs to be sensitive to client cues provided, which may signal discomfort during this phase. The third stage, or phase, coincides with the building of relationships as part of the process itself, and there are three considerations to be mindful of as a coach. First, proper assessments depend on a coach's unique background and framework or referencing for conceptualizing behavior. Objectivity takes on a different meaning within the coaching relationship due to conducting standardized biomechanical tests or those that measure metrics. Assessments also depend on what the client is bringing to the relationship in terms of their agendas, their background, their values, and their needs. And this also ties into how well the coach is able to understand these matters. The client's cultural worldview is also to be assessed. At the client level, we have a unique perspective of reference based on their certain cultural factors, and this is something that will be seen through assessment. This may also influence what is said and how the client feels about how the work is to proceed within the coach and client relationship. The fourth stage of our coaching model involves goal setting, and this is described as the time of setting goals by making a commitment to a set of conditions, a course of action, and then a particular outcome. During this phase or stage, the coach and client mutually determine the process of goals and how they are set and what the outcomes will be. But it's also important to have both parties recognize that goals may change as new information, insights, and changes occur. Because this coaching model builds upon previous stages, coaches need to remember that a client might be reluctant to provide their thoughts behind their needs that they express until psychological comfort, trust, and safety have all been established in the coach and client relationship. And this is just another lesson that specifically relates to communication and will help coaches to develop the appropriate skills needed in the beginning stage of coaching a new client. Any interventions that you plan follow the goal establishment or goal setting stage and also the objectives for outcome stage. While thinking of intervention strategies, remember that a coach and client implement these together and agree on what is to be done as a team. The coach's role is to then provide support for the client during these processes and to help the client stay on point with the agenda. It's also important during the stage for the coach to remember that they have to believe that their client can, in fact, change and that they are not bound by their past. And this is supported by a belief that clients have the strength, the potential, the inner power, and the capacity to complete the change process. The coaching relationship must also allow for fine-tuning of the strategies used if new information or a deepening relationship happens to change what's needed for the client. It's also very important to remember that the coach bears no responsibility for making change happen just because they are being relied upon for guidance or support. The last stage of the general coaching model is a newer one and involves what's known as termination and follow-up. And every coaching relationship with a client will have an ending due to the coaching process if the coach has in fact been successful and done their job. Clients may end their relationship with the coach when they feel a sense of normalcy in their life or they feel that they have achieved their goals and they can maintain all that they had set out to do with their outcomes relative to goals related to exercise, physical activity, and lifestyle factors being elevated to a higher level of functionality. Regardless of how or when the coach and client relationship ends, there are some important rituals and processes to observe. And one of these includes follow-up. The termination phase is definitely one where the coach and client should engage in a relationship of follow-up to make sure that any changes made are lifelong and lasting. A lot of this will depend on the length of the coaching relationship. The agenda and the success of the process is also a factor. Generally, coaches prefer to work with a client for a period of approximately 10 to 12 weeks in duration and then schedule a 3-month follow-up.